Kids, do you want to do some graphic design? In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I went from concept to this, with zero Adobe products used. This video is time-coded, but before you skip the basics, know this. Logo design looks deceptively simple. However, making your logo is anything but simple. I did hundreds of hours of research, so you have to do less. I will show you how I designed my logo and answer a bunch of your questions in under 15 minutes. Let's go! Just do it! The channel's current logo has a couple of problems. The symbol is only a rectangle. It's not even remotely unique. Second, the typeface has small details. And that's not a deal breaker for everyone, but remember, I design stuff for 3D printing, and the standard FDM nozzle will never recreate those details. Let's start from zero. Prep is key, so let's get this right. Minimalism is often the name of the game nowadays. It's a very information-saturated word. If you only communicate what you need, it's easier to process. That doesn't mean it needs to be understated. You just hit up Logo Launch or Behance, and minimal designs are everywhere. Smartphone screen sizes, app icon sizes, and favicon sizes force designers to create something simple. I'm not dealing with a client, but I need to know what's the goal. A logo can have three parts: a symbol, a wordmark, and a tagline. We will do all three. The aesthetic should be technical, minimal, serious, professional, and, most importantly, set in a modern geometrical typeface. It's kind of boring, really, but otherwise it wouldn't look very professional now, would it? Especially for a design company. This is more like a personal preference, so to speak. It could be anything, really. What is a typeface? According to definition, typeface is the design of lettering that can include variations in weight, size, etc. Each of these variations is a font. So Roboto would be a typeface, while Roboto Black Italic is a font. But remember, it's not just about how you want your logo to look, but about the possible constraints. For me, it has to be monochrome or black and white, because the design must work on a wide range of mediums. It has to be usable on any background color, simple enough to 3D print or mill. Stencil version for spray painting and laser cutting. I mean, there's a chance it will need to be done at some point, so I better do it up front than realize it's not possible to do later on. The symbol must work as a favicon. I mean, I'm gonna need a website, and favicons have a special square aspect ratio. We need to fit in that, and we need to keep that in mind when designing the logo. Because these icons are 32 by 32 pixels at most, we need the logo to be really good, really scalable. Must work in a very large size and a very small size. Symbol and wordmark has to be separate. This means no bounding box. I learned a lot from John McQuaid's design tutorials. He suggests this to have more flexibility when using the logo. There's really a sort of driving people to do something like this. This isn't really easy to use in a lot of situations because the symbol and the wordmark is the same. It's okay to create a version where there is a bounding box, but it shouldn't be the logo design itself. But for example, when did you ever see the Apple logo and the Apple wordmark together nowadays? Almost never. They are either only use their logo or their wordmark. He also reasoned most small businesses don't actually need a symbol. Good wordmark is often enough, is because small business identity is less related to branding and more related to customer relationships. But this tutorial wouldn't make sense without it, so we will do all three. Just do it! After a lot of experimentation on letter-based symbols, it proved to be a dead end in my case. If done like this, it's not separate from the text. If done like this, well, double D already has other associations. So most of this is already done to death. Or incorrect for me. We just need an idea. My name is Daniel Sarka. In Hungarian, it means magpie. So in English, I would be called Daniel Magpie. What gives, right? As with any design, it's good to start with hand sketches on paper. For me, imperfections are not an issue. They can even lead to ideas down the line. After a lot of trial and error, I settled on a side and a front quarter view. I just took a photo and loaded it into Inkscape. The side view didn't work with the square aspect ratio. The front quarter view looked much more promising. I added negative space to the abdomen where magpies are white. This makes the line a little bit simpler. But this brings us onto a problem. The symbol has to work on any background color, and magpies are black, so I can't just invert the colors. The brain just doesn't say magpie to this image. I created a box to maintain a white background. It's a bit of a workaround solution, but it creates a stamp-like effect, which is nice. You might wonder whether this decision will bite me in the ass later. Well, we'll see. I created some other dynamic variants just to make sure I wasn't leaving anything on the table. These are more generic, so eventually I decided to drop them. I scaled the logo down to a very small size to help decide what size the magpie should be inside the box. I found the smaller size actually works better because a small scale design needs to be open and needs to have a lot of negative space around it in order to work and to be perceived as clear. So we're gonna go with that. And here's the final look. A logo will have letters in it, so make them good. For absolute beginners, understanding typography on material.io is a good place to start. The most popular typefaces are used for a reason. They have high quality, which is an easy way to make your work better instantly. Of course, your operating system doesn't have any of them. And the big names are prohibitively expensive. I'm looking at you, Monotype. And if you thought desktop was bad, wait till you see the pay-per-view per year count bullshit on web fonts.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
Of course, one way to solve this is by throwing money at the problem. Adobe provides many of these fonts included in Creative Cloud, which is decent value for money, but it's more or less the same solution. People make the argument that if you do graphic design, you will make that money back easily, but for a beginner who's absolutely not sure about that, it's a very risky upfront investment. Luckily, there are small type foundries which make good quality for cheap with none of the pay-per-view bullshit. But if you need even cheaper, maybe even free, look up free and open source alternatives on popular fonts on learnui.design. Free font alternatives, the ultimate guide. Also, two very good sites are the leagueofmovabletype.com and Google Fonts. I have to give credit to the League of Movable Type guys. Absolute respect. By the way, don't confuse open license font with open type font. Open license means it's more or less free and modifiable. Open type fonts, OTF for short, are just a file format. I love if a typeface has many variants, preferably more than 5. It just helps you tune the look exactly right. Fonts are often separated into display and text fonts. As we scale text up, the letter spacing, the kerning, has to get smaller to look right. Letter shape is also a factor, so some typefaces are more fit for displays, other for text, while some can do both. Ideally, I should do different sized versions of the logo with adjusted kerning, but I don't have time for that. I did a lot of variations on one-line word marks and their relationship to the symbol. I'm trying common and quite rare typefaces just to see what works. All of these are open license, by the way, I think. In the common ones, I'm looking at Helvetica and Gotham alternatives. I experimented with Roboto variants from Google, which turned out to be a bad idea. As I learned, they are text typefaces optimized for small screens, so this is not really their main strength. I also experimented with some display fonts from Google, but they didn't really have the impact I need. Finally, Metropolis got my attention. I tried two-line wordmark versions with more or less the same typefaces. Here, Metropolis also proved to be the best. Metropolis is a free alternative to the popular typeface Gotham. Gotham is a strange typeface, a bit like Batman. It's very elegant, but the uppercase punches very hard if needed. Its two main alternatives for free are Metropolis and Railway. After checking both, I chose Railway from the League of Movable Type because of the blocky G and the shorter overall length. Railway is an open license font, and it also comes in an OTF file format. Not all software support OTF, but it can contain alternate character looks, which is useful, because the standard numerals and the W are not really what we need right now. I have a tutorial on how to access these alternate characters in Inkscape. You can check the link if needed. So here is the logo in Railway. I like it. At 50% gray, I switch the lettering to white, but the symbol is always the same. John McReed always said, don't just type it, give it some attention, adjust the kerning. In this case, the E and S were too close, so I gave them some additional space. I'm sure people could still find faults in this, better adjust the kerning, but it's fine for now. It's possible to get away with using the same typeface everywhere, but it's better to pair 2 or maybe even 3 in a tasteful manner. Color and shape contrast is what attracts the eye. Remember that. I created this comparison because I wanted something distinctive to pair with Railway. It must have tabular numbers to work well on technical drawings and good text legibility for documentation and web. All this preferably without alternate character sets, because many software, including the one I currently use, SCAD, Fusion 360, doesn't even work with OTF fonts. Based on that criteria, Archaea from Atipo Type Foundry was the winner. Quite an achievement, considering it's the only premium font on this list. Inter from Rasmus Andersson with alternate character set is a close second. It's an open license font, so it would be reasonable to modify it to use alternate characters as default and convert it to TTF, but it's a lot of work and I'm not up for it. Archaea for this case works better for me. So I bought it. Props to Atipo for making such a great font, really. So here's the final look. I said the bounding box was a risky idea. Well, we'll have to make a stencil version now, which introduces some physical limitations. Stencils need bridges, otherwise there is nothing to hold the islands in place. I based the bridge layout loosely on the FFD stencil by Monotype. This works well until we get 50% gray. When we switch to actually painting in white, that's how we get the inverse magpie. One solution is to make bridges like this, but that makes for very flimsy islands. More bridges and we lose the outline of the bird, so that doesn't work either. The only way to make this work is to make 2 stages. The first one creates the letters and the white box, and the second stage is the bird in black color. I hope I don't ever have to use this. That's a workaround solution if I've ever seen one. But it is a solution. The stencil logo has this technical and urban look, which will work very nice. I know some processes like 3D printing could potentially round out some corners inside the logo like this, but I can live with that. I did some mockups in Photoea. The templates were downloaded from mockupsdesign.com. The YouTube channel Logos by Nick has a very good tutorial on how to use these mockups inside Photoea without actually touching Photoshop at all. By the way, Photoea is a website, but it can be converted into a web app by using Edge. Once it is a web app, it can be loaded from the desktop. You can load custom fonts into it, which will be always loaded on start, and you can assign it to read PSD files as default. So you just double click on the file and it will open in Photoea every time. Pretty neat. I know GIMP, but GIMP is not 100% a Photoshop alternative. It doesn't handle CYMK, doesn't use smart objects. Like, it's not really gonna work out with GIMP, even though I like the software. Yeah, I think Adobe is very hard to avoid because it is the industry standard, and if you plan to collaborate, I think it's very hard to get around it. Very, very hard. I might have to subscribe one day. Look really white in that shot. But anyway, since there is some time left of the 10 minutes, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's following me. And really, even though I've been unemployed, I've been not putting out much videos in the past. Well, turns out my editing process was crap, and I wasn't actually doing a great job of shooting videos. I was trying to perfect ideas and then making crap videos of the results. It's not really helpful. So, depends on how things will go, but I think I figured it out now. Maybe it's gonna get better, maybe not. We shall see.
It's a magpie! He's up to no good, I think.